What's up, everybody? It's Josh here, back with another ShowMeFootball.com Kansas City Chiefs live post-game show. And we're back again to talk Chiefs after yet another loss. This time, once again in the regular season, to the Tennessee Titans. The Chiefs fall 27-3. Couldn't even score a touchdown. Very reminiscent of the Super Bowl, where they also didn't score a touchdown. But I mean, I know there's a ton to complain about. We'll get into it. But before anything, I want to introduce Hydra, who I'm having on the channel today. I know some of you guys are going to miss Connor. Some of you guys are going to be happy it's not Connor. And I'm sure Connor will get in the chat and you guys can fight with him in the chat. But anyway, I got Hydra on here today to talk Chiefs with me and just rant about this game. So anyway, Hydra, introduce yourself and tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so my Twitter is just going to be at Hydra, like you see on the screen right now. And yeah, I'm just a pretty chill Chiefs fan, I guess. Thanks for having me on.
And we already got Marlon Sunnington in the chat, who, if you guys ever need to talk to someone during the game, after the game, he hosts pretty fun Twitter spaces where you guys can all talk. But anyway, we're going to get into talking about the game. So, honestly, Hydra, when I first looked at this game heading into this weekend, I picked the Chiefs to lose. I just wasn't that confident. I thought the Titans had been rolling, and it didn't help at all when they beat the Bills. That was a big game for them, and they came out on top. So, they're rolling right now. And the Chiefs aren't rolling. I thought a lot of the stuff that they did against the Washington football team was because it was against the Washington football team. A lot of people said if they can continue what they did in the second half of that game into this week, that would be great. Maybe the Chiefs are finally back. They got their swagger back. I kind of brushed it off because it's like, look, it's the Washington football team. Let's see it against a legitimate opponent. They played a legitimate opponent today, and they got their asses kicked. So what are your initial thoughts?
Spags has to change stuff or he's going to go. I mean, obviously the offense has been killing themselves with the turnovers and just with the bad play calling, bad decision making from Patrick Mahomes, not, protecting the ball. I mean, this is basic stuff that they are just, beating themselves with. But on top of that, we have a defense that can't stop anybody. Literally, I mean, going into halftime, we were down against the Washington football team last week. I mean, this team just has not been good.
Yeah, and I don't want people to freak out in the comments who are watching right now when I say this, but at what point do we question Andy Reid? Because the team has a historically bad defense. They're historically bad at turning the ball over. His play calling does not help whatsoever, and the team just looks totally undisciplined. I mean, we can nitpick with coordinators and players here and there, but at what point does some of this?
It all goes back to him. Yep, it all goes back to him. I mean, I saw a tweet and it was saying like, this all goes back to Andy Reid. He's running the show here.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that he has loyalty to his assistant coaches. I feel like that's an area where Brett Veach typically stays away, is Andy Reid's assistant coaches.
Yep.
And he let him pick out Steve Spagnuolo. And Steve Spagnuolo, I said this during the game. I know you saw the tweet, but when we hired him, the one request all of us had as fans is that he's better than Bob Sutton. Fast forward 2 years later, he's worse than Bob Sutton. And I don't think many of us thought that was possible.
Here's the thing with Spags. I mean, his system obviously works, right? He's won, 2 or 3 Super Bowls with multiple teams. The issue is he's also had some of the worst defenses of the last decade. With the Saints, I saw the other day that they were one of the worst statistical defenses, and now here we are this year. And it's every year that he's been in KC, the defense has been declining every single year. And now we're at a point where we're worse than Bob Sutton, like you said.
Yeah, I remember when Spags coached the Saints defense. That was back when they were coming off Bounty Gate. So it was a really dark time in the Saints franchise. So I cut Spags a little bit of slack for that. However, when you have one of these statistically worst defenses of all time and yards given up per play, not very encouraging. And once again, this year, the Chiefs defense is in a similar position because I actually have the stats of the game in front of me, and I hope you guys are ready for this because today the Chiefs, even though they were effective in stopping Derrick Henry, and we'll talk about that in a minute, go more in depth and who all helped to do that, but the Chiefs gave up 369 total yards of offense, and although Derrick Henry only rushed for about 100 yards, the middle of the field was open all freaking day for the Titans and their receivers. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones absolutely feasted on this secondary. And I know, I mean, there's issues all over the place, man. Like my mind is racing with thoughts. I get the pass rush isn't good and that affects the secondary. And, you know, I get it. There's a lot of weaknesses on the defense, but at some point we have to also acknowledge that maybe when you continually refuse to invest in corner, it comes back to bite you, regardless if you have a pass rush. I always go back to 2018. We led the league in sacks and still had the worst pass defense in the league. At the end of the day, bad cornerbacks are bad cornerbacks. And Mike Hughes, in particular, is a bad cornerback. I don't know why. I don't know what they see in Mike Hughes, first of all. And I also don't understand why they put Mike Hughes on guys like Julio Jones and Mike Williams as if he's this bigger corner that can get physical with those guys and press them and, you know, stick with them. He can't. He's a small corner and he's not a good corner at all. Like, why do they trust Mike Hughes so much? I don't understand.
I honestly don't see it either. I have no idea. I'll tell you this, moving forward, especially for the Chargers game, it is going to be Rashad Fenton on Mike Williams because we're not going to let Hughes get toasted again the way he did that first matchup. But honestly, going into this game, everyone was saying Fenton needs to be a starter. And then we come out in the base defense and Ward's on the field over him. Hughes is on the field over him. We've seen Fenton for what, 3 or 4 years now. And every time he's on the field, he seems to make plays. And we're like, why is he not starting? I just don't understand it.
And that's one of my biggest frustrations with the Reed era and the Reed coaching staff of right now is that they seem to ignore the obvious personnel decision that would help this team out. It took them weeks to finally realize Juan Thornhill should have been out there over Dan Sorensen. They still haven't figured out that Chris Jones needs to be on the inside because I remember one play in particular in today's game. He was at defensive tackle and immediately collapsed the pocket. Chris Jones, I have my concerns with him too and his effort and his play, but I mean, there's no doubt that he's the team's best pass rusher, and they're making him a worse pass rusher by playing him out of position.
Yeah, I mean, what they did is they took the second best interior rusher in the league behind Aaron Donald, and they made him, what, maybe a top 30 edge? I mean, he had 2 sacks week 1, and since then, he's been absolutely just missing or injured.
Yeah, and the worst thing too is that they could have signed a defensive end, and you're seeing it now.
Connor.
For those of you that missed it this morning, Ian Rappaport tweeted about a list of like defensive players. I think it was defensive players, but just players in general, maybe even that are on the trade block. And Melvin Ingram was one of them. And he mentioned the Chiefs as one of the top landing spots for Melvin Ingram, which first of all, that should have happened already. They shouldn't have to be giving up an asset and trading for Melvin Ingram.
Yep.
If that's what it comes down to. It just makes their offseason look even worse when they're going back to a player that they could have signed. But even then, if they were to acquire Melvin Ingram, which I would love, I mean, what does he really change? Because their problems still go a lot deeper than just getting a defensive end.
Well, and to kind of touch on that about, you know, having to trade capital for Melvin Ingram, and that should have happened. I've seen a lot of that with people saying we should trade for Emmanuel Ogbah. And
yes.
I'm just going to say this right now. We're not going to trade capital for a guy that we let go of 2 years ago. That's just not going to happen.
It's a bad look. And it's a bad look, too,
exactly.
Which is part of the reason they won't do it.
This team should have went after Justin Houston or, like you said, Melvin Ingram. Those guys were both available. And once Ingram got signed, Houston was still available. And I know things kind of ended badly with him, but would he want to come to Kansas City and chase a ring with us? I think absolutely.
I feel like a lot of the Twitter blue check marks have fed the fans this Justin Houston, the bridge is burnt with the Chiefs BS for a couple of years. Like, if they're still not over that by now, like, you're telling me no one could come to a compromise and he could have came back to Kansas City and ended on a good note? I just refuse to believe that's what it is. I think they could have had him if they really wanted him.
Well, and the thing with how things ended with Houston too. I know we're kind of going on a tangent here, but
Right.
he signed with the Colts for basically the same money that we offered him to stay in Kansas City with us.
Yes.
So it's not like this was like a drastic difference in the contract that he got when he left Kansas City. It was pretty similar.
And he signed to play in the same scheme that we were changing to.
Exactly. And he
So
was more productive than Frank Clark, who we traded a first-round pick for and paid $100 million for to replace him.
It's bad. I'm going to get to some comments real quick because I missed a lot of them since we've been talking. What's up, Eddie? Nice to see you in the chat. Eric, you too. So Philip Johnson says, we play awful as hell, even though in the division we're still third place. That's not good enough. Yeah, there's no reason, especially with the Chargers coming off a bad loss to the Ravens and the Broncos and Raiders kind of coming back down to earth. Like the Chiefs should be first in the division, but they're not because guess what? The Chiefs aren't a good football team.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Rod Dixon says, we're not good. Pat tries to make highlight plays every play. The defense is horrible. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is on Mahomes too. He hasn't played great, but a lot of that is also because that he feels the pressure of having to score on every single offensive drive.
He tries to be the hero.
And you can't really blame him. But he does deserve a little bit of blame at the same time. Like he's got to protect the ball better. He can't be making risky of throws as he's making. And I know he doesn't want to take the sack and lose yards, but Mahomes has just got to learn to take a sack at times because it is killing him.
I think he has like literal PTSD from the Super Bowl because it has taken him so long to learn how to trust a pocket and step up, especially when the interior of our offensive line is the strong part of it. I mean, because our tackle situation is a mess right now. And that was the one thing that Veach was supposed to address this offseason. And he just doesn't know how to trust the pocket right now. And he tries to make these plays. You know, we've seen 3 times now where it's like he's about to get sacked and he just throws a horrible interception. You know, we saw it last week in the Washington game. And it's like, just take the sack. I know you don't want to give it up, but he has to protect himself and the football at the same time.
Yeah, and we got a comment here saying offensive line looked horrible, especially Orlando Brown. We're kind of on that topic right now, so we'll keep on that topic.
Yep.
I tweeted it out on the Show Me Football Twitter account about halfway through the game. You know, the one thing, even though I was disappointed in Brett Veach's offseason, the one thing he could hang his hat on was the fact he rebuilt the offensive line. And now the rebuilt offensive line is starting to look like a problem. I understand Mahomes is bailing on a lot of pockets that he shouldn't, and he shouldn't drift as much because he makes it harder on his offensive line, especially when the tackles they have now aren't the athletes that Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher were that could run with him. But the offensive line looks rough, and Orlando Brown was getting killed by the speed rushers that the Titans have. And that's a problem that this one position group that Brett Veach could hang his hat on, you know, is performing badly. So if you take that away, what did Brett Veach do to help this team this offseason?
Yeah, I honestly, at first I was kind of trolling Ravens fans on Twitter when I was saying, oh, the Ravens traded us, a Pro Bowl swing tackle that can play both sides for a edge rusher with 0 sacks. But to be honest, the whole time I was very worried about Orlando Brown playing left tackle in a pass-heavy scheme, and we're seeing him struggle this year with that. And I know you tweeted this during the game or towards the end of the game. Why not just try Lucas Niang at left tackle? I've been saying this the entire offseason until now. Lucas Niang is a better pass protector than Orlando Brown. It's not even an argument at this point. Why is he benched for Mike Remmers right now? I honestly don't understand that either.
That move it's a head scratcher to me. Not necessarily because Niang was playing out of this world, but is he injured or was this because of performance? I'm getting convoluted answers to why that was. I think the main argument people were making was that they put in Remmers because Mahomes was more comfortable with Remmers, but at this point,
Remmers is looked worse than Niang.
Yeah, Niang is the better run blocker.
Right. You look at who I tweeted this, Lucas Niang, who hadn't played football in almost 2 years because of a injury. Before that, he was projected to go first round, right? We got him in the third round because of his injury.
Yep.
He's had to face week 1, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, week 2, Jason Oweh, Justin Houston, week 3 was on Joey Bosa, I think. Was that week 3 or week 4?
Yep. Week 3 would have been the Chargers.
Yep, and then
for
Montez Sweat the next week. Like, he's had to go against these elite edge rushers, some of them being future Hall of Famers, right? And the one thing
Yep.
that I will say about Niang is that he does tend to get beat inside a lot, and that's one thing I noticed in the offseason when I did all my film review. For those of you that don't know or can't tell by now, I'm probably the highest Chiefs fan on Lucas Niang. If you haven't been able to tell by now, from here or my Twitter. I just don't understand it, man. I know Orlando Brown came here to play left tackle, but we're seeing that he cannot be the future at left tackle. We have to protect Mahomes. We paid him $500 million. And why not try Niang there? I don't understand it. Andy Reid has said it looks like he could play left tackle. This is before we had Orlando Brown, obviously, but he's like, yeah, it looks like he could be a starter at left tackle. Every time you hear Andy Reid talk about Lucas Niang, what does he say? He's got great technique, great footwork. He's got this perfect frame to play tackle. You hear all those things about Lucas Niang, and then whenever he talks about a guy like Mike Remmers, who now replaced him, you hear, oh, I thought he did a good job. Oh, he's a good player. I don't understand it. I really don't.
Some of it is coach speak, but a lot of it I think is just blind optimism and the wrong guys. Like, some people pointed this out as well, but when the whole Juan Thornhill, Dan Sorensen debacle was going on, there were points where Steve Spagnuolo, when he would be asked about it, would say Juan Thornhill has to earn his way back, or Juan Thornhill is making mistakes. He's not there yet. Like throwing Juan Thornhill under the bus. But every time he gets pressured to answer questions about Dan Sorensen, he's saying stuff like, Dan has played well. Dan has put in good snaps for us.
Yep.
Like, it makes zero sense.
I don't understand it, man. I really don't. We do it with Ben Eamon, too. Like, I know the last few weeks we were easing Gay back in, and I know, obviously, he played probably close to 100% of the snaps today. But even last year, Ben Neiman was getting snaps over Willie Gay, and it's like, you invested a second-round pick in this guy. Play him. Play your best players. I know that's a crazy concept for, Spags to understand for whatever reason.
Yes.
Play your best players. Voice crack. Play Dorian O'Daniel. Play athletes. Why is Ben Neiman on the field? Why is Dan Sorensen on the field over a guy like Armani Watts? Let him play. See what you have in him. I mean,
yeah, like I've been screaming that for weeks, especially in the case of Dorian O'Daniel when you have Ben Neiman playing snaps. At least Dorian O'Daniel can run with guys. Dorian O'Daniel can blitz. I mean, he's their second best athlete at the linebacker position, right behind Willie Gay. Like, you cannot tell me he is so bad that he cannot even touch the field with how bad this defense is. And the flats were wide open all day. We saw it once again. The Titans were killing the Chiefs on screens. They had no idea it was coming. You're seeing 3rd and 15s be converted for first downs because Spags is giving out free flats all day.
And you notice that whenever they did target the flats, they were throwing away from Willie Gay. I saw several times Willie Gay blowing up those, flat plays for the running back, and then they just throw to Ben Neiman's side. They do it every play, and this is why you need Dorian O'Daniel in there, because if you're not going to trust him and you're going to keep Spags, then that means this offseason, with Neiman probably walking, Hitchens probably walking, we're going to have to either draft another outside linebacker or try and find one that's better than Ben Neiman in free agency, which I guess won't be hard to do, but it's just, you have these players.
Well, you say that, but they've had 3 years now. They've had 3 years now to find a linebacker better than him, and they just refuse to get anybody.
Yeah, and whenever O'Daniel's in the game, what does he do well? He blitzes. He can cover running backs. I mean, he has been good whenever he's playing. And I know we ask him to only do certain things, but that's okay. He should play to his strengths. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and they need to let players do that more, play to their strengths, because that's finally what they did with Nick Bolton today, who's one of the lone bright spots. He finally got his chance to play middle linebacker with Anthony Hitchens out, and he single-handedly kept Derrick Henry in check. Like, he had his best game of his young career and the best game probably of any Chiefs defender today.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll
And
say
we've been hard
this.
on him too.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, Willie Gay, Nick Bolton is the future of this defense. I'm happy that we can build around them, but there's so many uncertainties going into the end, like just the remainder of this season, but then going into next offseason. Like, I don't know what it is about the combination of Brett Veach and Steve Spagnuolo, but it seems like, or just not even Steve Spagnuolo, just Brett Veach drafting in general. I think that this team does have a coaching issue because if you look at guys like L'Jarius Sneed, McCole Hardman, Juan Thornhill, their best years are the first year in the system, whether it's on offense or defense. And as they, get coached up more and they're here longer, all of a sudden we see those guys start to fall off a cliff and decline. There is something wrong with this coaching staff, and I just don't understand what it is, but it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, and people have argued if it's coaching, if it's talent, and I've always said it's a combination of both. I think Brett Veach has been poor with his roster management. I think his bad drafts and bad signings are starting to really catch up with the team. If you look since Mahomes' breakout year in 2018, I think this team has probably declined. See, yes, they won the Super Bowl in 2019, but I think the 2018 team arguably had more talent on it. I think they've really declined in overall talent over the past, over Veach's tenure. But I think Mahomes masked that, and now we're getting to the point where it's just too much for Mahomes to mask. Like, he can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Eric, to respond to that question, we should not have taken edge last year. If we kept the 31st overall pick, we were not taking edge. It was going to be a tackle like Samuel Cosme, who we should have taken instead of trading capital for Orlando Brown. But again, I mean, what do I know? You could have Samuel Cosme making what, 20 million for the next 4 or 5 years, and then now we have to pay Orlando Brown after this year because I don't see us trading for him and then just either tagging him this offseason or giving up on him. I mean, we're going to try and force it to work just like we're doing with Clyde. I mean, Clyde clearly has not been the better back on this team. The combination of Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon, especially, it gives you the more power in Williams and the speed in McKinnon. And Clyde, just what does he offer to this team that those backs don't?
I always said that what does Clyde Edwards-Helaire do that prime Spencer Ware couldn't do for this team?
Yeah. Spencer, I would argue Spencer Ware was better.
Yeah, especially as a pass catcher. I remember there were talks at one point of Spencer Ware just switching to slot receiver because he was so good catching out of the backfield.
And that's the thing with Clyde is, we drafted him because he was the better receiving back coming out of his class, obviously like just barely in front of DeAndre Swift. But Mahomes doesn't trust him in the passing game at all.
I honestly think it's because he's too short. And I know that sounds silly, but I think like Mahomes is uncomfortable because it's an awkward passing angle to make sure it fits in Clyde's catch radius because he has the stubby frame. If you don't put it right in his breadbasket, it's hard to complete a pass to Clyde. And I think Mahomes just isn't comfortable passing to him. It's like when you're playing catch with like your little cousin or a little relative, like he's just not comfortable with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was comfortable with Kareem Hunt, who's about the same size. Like, he's a little bit more built than Clyde is, but he
just has longer limbs.
Yeah, I mean, Hunt was a better back. I mean, overall, I mean, when he's a starter, he's a top 5 back in the league. That's not really arguable. Because we saw it when he was in Kansas City before, the incident. I don't know, man. I really don't get it with Clyde. I tried to defend it for so long, and I finally came to your side this offseason because I was like, well, there weren't any holes. Mahomes wanted him, but Mahomes doesn't trust him. So it was a bad pick at this point. I feel like that's fair to say.
Yeah, it definitely was. Also, I just switched mics. I realized I was on my internal mic the entire time, so hopefully
it's quality... a lot better now.
Okay. I can't believe I forgot about that. But yeah, I just switched to my other one. I've been talking into it this whole time, not knowing it was my internal mic that was actually turned on.
It wasn't that bad before.
Yeah, no, it's not horrible, but I definitely like having my G-Track Pro to use. But
for sure.
Anyway, we're seeing some quotes come out as the press conferences go on as we're doing this live stream. And Andy Reid, the top quote right now is, "I'm seeing things that I haven't seen before." I think that means we need to make some serious changes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it could be that Mahomes felt pressured from his right side in particular and his left side. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you should put the right tackle that we have playing left tackle to right tackle, and then try Niang a left tackle for a game. I mean, might be a crazy idea, but that's just me.
I mean, Seth Kaiser, who does the Chief in the North podcast or video with RGR Football and works for The Athletic, he said last week, and I talked about this in one of my past videos, that when the Chiefs lost to the Bills at home a few weeks ago, that was the point. And I had already came to this point before that, but I'm curious where you're at with this, Hydra. But when they lost to the Bills, he said that was the point in which he went, this Chiefs team doesn't just have the ability to figure it out anymore like we always thought they did. Like, when the Chiefs were in slumps before, we thought, oh, they got Mahomes. It's the Chiefs. They'll be all right. I always hated that mentality, but it did work out for the people who believed it for the longest time. But now, I mean, they're not good. Like, you can't say that anymore. You can't say we have Mahomes. The Chiefs aren't invincible anymore. And I want to hear from you commenters too. Did that end for you today, or was it already over before this?
For me specifically, it's been over since the Chargers game. When you've seen, like you were talking about, how Mahomes can just save this team. How is he supposed to save this team? If he doesn't have any help? I mean, honestly, who does he have besides Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce creating separation? Nobody. Maybe Byron Pringle, 3 snaps a game. You can't have that though. This team needs a number 2.
And that was one of my notes too, is that the receivers today just could not get any separation. And the formula of Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes winning the game for you every single time and being the only 3 that can do anything, it's not going to work anymore. I mean, McColl's got to step up. Josh Gordon has got to step up, even though he's only been here for a few weeks. I think the team needs to, swallow their ego and take Clyde Edwards-Helaire out and give Jerick McKinnon more snaps, since that guy is a playmaker and he has the athletic ability. I don't know. Changes had to be made. And a lot of it goes back to Brett Veach's roster building, because this team could use a wide receiver too right now. They don't have one. They could use a defensive end right now. They don't have one. They had chances to go out and get one. They could use a left tackle, which they addressed this offseason, and it still continues to be an issue. They didn't invest in corner. I always thought they should have upgraded from the third safety and Dan Sorensen. They didn't. Dan Sorensen is still on this team, and he's still playing snaps.
Can we talk about that for a sec?
Yeah.
Fuck the Raiders. Okay, Tyree Gillespie, much like Nick Bolton, went to Mizzou, obviously, had been linked to the Chiefs throughout the entire offseason. Last year, the Raiders drafted a safety. They had already drafted 2 this year, and they trade up 1 pick this year before the Chiefs when we took Joshua Kendo.
Because I think the Chiefs were going to get him. I think they were actually going to get him.
We were going to take him, and the Raiders said, fuck that. We want Dan Sorensen out there in coverage. And you've seen teams take advantage of Dan Sorensen this entire year.
I think they kind of panicked when they took Kendo, although I will say that
I like the pick.
Kendo going on IR, actually, I was kind of disappointed by that, because I think at some point, we've already gotten to that point, but I said that you just need to play your best athletes. You need to play guys with upside, because it can't get much worse. What do you have to lose? And I thought he put out some good snaps, and their defensive end room is just so thin that I would have liked to see more Kendo. And it's unfortunate that he's hurt right now. So hopefully he can come back soon and maybe show something.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. He needs to play over Okafor. I mean, Okafor got hurt. Do you know what the injury was to Okafor today?
I did not see it, but I'm going to try to look it up on Twitter.
It looked like a left ankle injury or something. I don't know if he went back in the game after that. But yeah, once he does come back, he needs to get more snaps. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. He just needs to get the fundamentals of the game down and more the mental side. But he was the guy that I mocked to the Chiefs several times in the offseason. I'm a pretty big fan of his. Like I said, he's got all that athletic upside. We just need to play him more. Again, play your best athletes. I don't understand what this coaching staff has against that, but it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I couldn't find what the injury actually was, but I'll go with you and say it was an ankle, probably some lower leg injury. But yeah, I never understood bringing back Okafor. And you know who else they let go? And I know a lot of people were on this bandwagon too, but why did you let Tim Ward go instead of Alex Okafor?
Yeah, I don't understand it, man. Well, and the thing about Okafor too is the second Ingram got signed to the Steelers, then we signed Okafor after we'd already cut him in the same offseason. It was basically Brett Veach admitting that, oh, I didn't go after guys hard enough as I should. And it just, I don't understand it, man. I really don't.
And sometimes I wonder what his pitch is, because we saw Whitney Merciless most recently. The Chiefs were in the running for him, and I think he would have absolutely helped this defense, but he ended up going to the Packers. That's another one of their big whiffs. They whiffed on Juju Smith-Schuster. They whiffed on Josh Reynolds. They whiffed on Melvin Ingram. They whiffed on Trent Williams, Niners tackle. They whiffed a lot this past offseason, and they're whiffing with some of these other guys who pass through waivers or get released too. And I kind of wonder if that, like, Veach is just not selling these guys hard enough, or what the heck is going on. But why aren't these players wanting to play for the Kansas City Chiefs anymore?
Well, to say one thing, with Trent Williams, we actually offered him the same amount of money that he got paid in San Francisco, and he was about to sign with us, but then San Francisco matched him because he wanted to stay there. Juju, we offered the most money, and then he decided to stay. And I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with Whitney Merciless. I think either us or I forget the other team, but both offered more money than the Packers, and he chose them. So I really don't know what the pitch is. I don't know if it's as simple as, hey, you want to play with Patrick Mahomes? I don't know if that's his entire pitch, because, yeah, it kind of seems like it's something very simple that just isn't working.
Yeah, if that is the pitch, then Veach needs to be fired, because that can't work anymore. It's not going to work anymore.
No, but I think it seriously has to be something simple like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, honestly, it's like, why are they not wanting to come here for more money? It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't.
Yeah, and I know it was kind of a joke when it happened, but do you remember the story that Andy Reid, he texted Juju a picture of the Lombardi Trophy, trying to recruit him? Like,
yeah,
I know it was kind of a joke and it was cool, and we're all like, yeah, Andy, that's so, what a flex. But if that's all that they really did, like, that's kind of embarrassing.
I just want to point this out real quick. Andy Reid is currently trending on Twitter because of his play calling today.
We always have, at this point we've had 4 of them, but we always have a few of those Andy Reid letdown games every single year where fans want him fired. It happened during the Super Bowl year too. I was on it whenever they lost to the I think it was the Texans. Also the Titans game that year too. I mean, that was pretty freaking bad. Yeah. But this goes back to Mahomes masking a lot of his deficiencies. I think it's getting to the point where he can't anymore. Like, when you're taking the ball out of Mahomes' hands on these second and longs and making them run the ball on second and long, like, that's just, you can't, that play calling sucks. You've got to be more creative, and you do it so much to the point other teams know it's coming. Stop running the ball on second and long.
Yeah, I think part of it is maybe when he's had success on longer runs like that, he's had guys like Prime Shady McCoy and Jamal Charles, and he doesn't have that now. This team doesn't have that true number one running back that can just take it to the house every play like those two could. I mean, those are 2 future Hall of Fame talents at the position.
Yeah, I know there was rumors that the Chiefs inquired about Marlon Mack, the Colts running back. And while I think Marlon Mack is a good player, they need to be spending assets on defense. And also, I think if they were to trade for Marlon Mack, that tells you everything. Yeah, you'd be admitting that the Clyde pick was bad. They wouldn't have to trade for Marlon Mack if Clyde was what they had hoped he would be. So
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna sign anyone or trade for anyone, it's gonna be defense. I mean, you saw we offered more money to Whitney Merciless, and he decided to go to Green Bay instead. But he was, a defender that we actually pursued. So, I mean, that's where we need help right now is defense. But there's not gonna be anyone, I don't think, for the remainder of the year. So, I don't know, man. I'm hoping this team turns things around. I know a lot of Chiefs fans say, oh, we've been here before. I've seen this team go, 1-5 and then make the playoffs. And I hope you guys are right. I hope we can turn things around. But right now, I don't see this team turning things around.
I just don't know what would give you much hope, because it's not like we're in a situation where a bunch of guys are hurt and that's why we're not performing right now. And we got backups on the horizon. They have everyone now. They have just about everyone. That's not the problem anymore. They're just not that good. People pointed out the Buccaneers going 7-5 last year and then not losing another game for the rest of the year. But I mean, that Buccaneers team wasn't getting their ass kicked by the better teams in the league. You know, I mean, there were some
Or
close
just
losses. I
in
mean, yeah, they had
the
their bad
AFC or the
games,
NFC.
right? But this team, like, it's different. Like, it's worse than that. Like, they're just not good at all. And Eric, I want to talk about his comment that I had pulled up here. He says, "This year is over. Start looking to the future." And for some people, that might sound kind of harsh, but I really am getting to that point because I always said that once you get to about 6 losses, like that's when you start really being worried about making the playoffs. They're 2 losses away from being at 6 losses already.
Yeah.
And they got the Cowboys and the Packers coming up on their schedule.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard
mean,
to see how they even make the playoffs.
yeah, I mean, I've been tweeting about it, just tank this year because honestly, I feel like that would be best for the future of this team. Not necessarily tanking, like obviously we're gonna still try and win, but if we miss the playoffs or we barely make the playoffs, then it's gonna have Brett Veach, take a look at what he's done and hopefully, get him in a good mindset. I mean, right now we don't have that many picks available to us this year in the offseason. But we're gonna get a comp pick for Breland, probably like a 5th or 6th round for him, probably like a 4th for Watkins. But then, assuming Eric Bieniemy tries to go and be a head coach somewhere, then obviously we would get the 2 third-round picks from that. So I
It
mean,
might be for the Chiefs. Can we do that? Can we hire Eric Bieniemy and get our own like draft pick reward? That'd be amazing.
I don't think that's how that works, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
unfortunately.
for it. Just have him and Reed switch spots, honestly.
Well, because I think Bieniemy disciplines better than Reed, ever has. I think he's that type of get in your face coach and chew you out.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love coaches like that, and I've had coaches like that from playing sports in high school and stuff like that. And they're not going to make you feel like shit, but they're going to let you know when you messed up, and they're going to try to lift you up and make you better. And I just don't see a ton of that from Reed. He's very much a player's coach, and that's why the players love him, because he lets them have, free range to do whatever they want. But I hate that, man, because that's how you get situations where Byron Pringle is allowed to be on kick return team after fumbling on a kick return 2 straight weeks in a row. Like, you got to bench him after that. And we just don't see discipline from Reed.
The thing with Reed being a player's coach is when you have that fire in the players, it works. When you have that championship, mentality like we used to have 2 years ago, it works. You see this team win. But then now when it seems like there's absolutely no energy on the team and there's no discipline, from the coaching staff, then you get what we have right now.
Exactly. And we're at about 37 minutes here, so we'll go for a little bit longer. We got 55 viewers in here so far, so thanks everyone who chose our stream after the game. Get some questions and comments going in the chat, and we'll definitely get to those since we've been neglecting them a little bit thus far, just kind of giving our thoughts. And then also, lastly, like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And you can always support the channel by donating a super chat if you're feeling generous. But Village Boy says, you know what pisses me off? Frank Clark was laughing at the end of the game on the bench.
I did see that.
Yeah, I saw Curtis Siebold from 810 actually tweeted a video saying, this is unacceptable. And it's funny because I thought we brought Frank Clark here for his leadership and his culture. And if he's not doing that, then what the hell is he doing?
I mean, I think I tweeted this today. I don't think I've ever seen a player go from having 15 sacks in Seattle, getting paid like all this stuff, winning a ring, and then just completely falling off a cliff. So I think honestly, he got his bag, he got his ring, and just stopped caring.
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's what happened with him, because he was never an elite player for Kansas City, but he was still able to get some production. Right now, he had 1 pressure this game that I think I saw. And that play, I mean, while it was an incomplete pass, it got bailed out because Snead was holding in the secondary. I mean, it's just, you can't have these kind of things.
Yeah. And I mean, they got to get a pass rush. They just, I know I said getting a defensive end doesn't, it doesn't fix anything really, because there's a lot more problems on this team. And they're probably going to need more bodies at defensive end than just one guy through the trade market. But they still need to try, and they still need to try and improve this pass rush, because I think the secondary could improve with a pass rush, because Ryan Tannehill had all freaking day to throw the ball.
Yeah.
But ironically enough, Frank Clark, his 2 Super Bowl trips have come on the Chiefs when he's played significantly worse for the Chiefs than he ever did for Seattle, which makes zero sense to me. I don't know why Sunshine Pumper fans kept voting that dude into the Pro Bowl. But it's whatever, I guess.
I just don't understand, man. I mean, luckily, this edge class is going to be very deep, so we'll be able to get a guy like Aiden Anderson, who in other edge classes would probably go, before the 20s or the, teens maybe. But he could be there later in the first round of the draft. A guy like him, a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, there's so many.
Hutchinson, yep.
There's so many ends this draft, and I just pray that Veach doesn't fuck things up, because we need to our first 2 picks need to be edge and corner. I mean, point blank, period. And then we need to target a guy like Juju in free agency.
And if this team continues on this trend that it is now, and let's just say they win minimum or maximum, really, like 7 or 8 games, I wonder if Veach is still here. I mean, I know the Chiefs are very much like to stick with their guys until the bitter end, but I wonder if at some point Clark Hunt is going to storm into these guys' office and say, "Hey, what the fuck do we got to do? Because this is ridiculous."
I mean, we just had 2 Super Bowl appearances, won one of them, and now we're falling off a cliff. I mean, that just can't happen with a GM that's failed to build this team, or a coaching staff that's failed to coach the players. Whatever one of those it is. And maybe it's a combination of both. I mean, something needs to change.
Yeah, and I talked extensively about the Super Bowl hangover for losing teams, and how if you look back at history, teams that lose the Super Bowl really often don't go back. That's true, but how often do you see them go from Super Bowl contender to absolute shit? Because that's what's happening to the Chiefs right now, and it's just it's painful to watch.
I mean, I'll tell part of what happened is you overpay for a guy like Frank Clark. You give up a first round pick and you pay him $100 million, and all of a sudden, money's tight, as Brett Veach would say, and we can't extend Tyrann Mathieu. We now we have to worry about paying Orlando Brown, which we shouldn't do, but we're gonna do it. I mean, it's just, this team is in such a bad place right now. It really is.
I don't know how it gets fixed, because it's not like they have help on the horizon, unless they just like completely trade away the next draft class for veteran players right now. Like, honestly, I'm not even super opposed to that. Like, let's just say they trade every single draft pick they have and a couple contracts back to the team they're trading with to get Justin Reed and Melvin Ingram. Is that enough to propel this team to make a Super Bowl run?
I don't think so. I think honestly, if we're really, trying to build, a strong franchise and get back on the right track, I think what you got to do is, trade draft picks, but you got to, take a 49ers approach, except in the draft. I think, you can only afford 1 first round contract this year, but trade up into the second round, have 2 or 3 second round draft picks. I mean, that's what needs to happen, I think, moving forward, because what's going to happen if we just trade for a bunch of veterans, in a few years, we're going to have to pay them. We're going to be in the same spot we're in right now. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
And the thing is, too, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. What was I going to say? What were you just talking about? Gosh, I'm drawing a complete blank.
Trading up to draft more rookies instead of veterans.
That's right. Sorry. So what I was going to say is that, honestly, because people are saying, don't trade away the assets, but we always complain about Brett Veach's drafting, and I'm not sure I trust him to even do anything with those picks, which is why I'm not opposed to giving up a bunch of picks for proven players right now, because I'm not totally confident that Veach would even do the right thing with those picks.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, if we do, continue on this path this year, I think it's really gonna, make him take a look at what he's done, and I think then, he's gonna step up his drafting, because I mean, ever since he's been here, I mean, every year his drafting has gotten better. I mean, this is the first year where he didn't really reach on someone in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nick Bolin's already looking good. Willie Gay has always looked good. He just hasn't gotten on the field until now, whether it was, because of Spags or injuries. So hopefully, I mean, they can continue to be that dynamic duo in the middle of the field that I think they're going to be for the next, 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to address this comment real quick, and then I want to talk about one more thing with you, and then we'll probably wrap it up. But anyway, Tyler and Liam says, we're like the Seahawks simply. And it's funny because I have a couple of friends that are Seahawks fans, and we were actually talking about this when I went to the Chiefs Bills game with them in KC. We were all together, and on the way home from the game, I was like, it's really eerie how similar the Chiefs and Seahawks are, because the Seahawks were the same way the Chiefs are now. And they were on top of the world at one point. Their fan base felt like they could do no wrong. Then they paid a couple guys, made some bad moves, and they started declining. I mean, they drafted a average to below average running back with one of their first round picks in Rashad Penny. We did the same thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, it's really eerie how similar they are, and it's hard not to draw parallels because they really do look like the 2013, 2014 Seahawks right now.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, the thing is, Mahomes has never had a defense. Can you imagine him with the Legion of Boom? We're scoring 50 a game.
Yeah. I mean, Brett Veach has invested so much into the offense because we know the bread and butter of this team is in the offense. So they want to make sure they put up as many points a game. But honestly, I think the way to make sure that this team scores more points is to actually give them a defense, because their offense, their offense has enough. I feel like stop investing in the offense. I know we've been complaining about a lot of their offensive players, but I think their offense as it stands is fine.
Right. I mean,
but if they have a defense that can get off the field, they would be scoring more points.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, we talked about needing a wide receiver too. I mean, I think Jody Fortson can kind of fill that role of being kind of like that third option. I mean, we saw it this year. He was getting more and more snaps.
He was kind of becoming that, right? Until he got hurt.
Right. I mean, so I think moving forward, I think next year he's going to come back and be, even better than he was looking this year. And again, I've been saying this for the longest time. When the Chiefs had a defense, even though we had an average offense, we won games. We still made the playoffs. But now you have Patrick Mahomes, and you still keep Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, but then just give them a defense. This team, has a super high ceiling.
Yeah. One more thing I want to talk about, and then we'll probably wrap it up, is we talked a lot about Andy Reid's play calling and his coaching, but we didn't touch on this. Why the hell that late into the game when you're down, why are you going for field goals? Seriously, what does a field goal do there? When you're on 3rd and long and you're in the other team's territory, why the hell aren't you going for it on 3rd down? And also, when it was late in the 4th quarter and you were still down, why the hell was Mahomes and all the starters still in the game? And then you see Mahomes have a scary injury there at the end. Luckily, it looks like everything's okay, and he just got, stung a little bit, but that's horrible coaching by Reid.
Yeah, I mean, his neck got bent completely backwards from that defender. And that's just the kind of thing that, again, I think it was Orlando Brown who allowed that. That can't happen. He came here and said, hey, no one's going to touch Patrick Mahomes because of me. And so far, that's just been a lie.
Yeah. And we also, again, rebuilt this offensive line so Patrick Mahomes isn't getting bent backwards, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
So it's looking rough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the field goals. I don't understand, keeping the starters in for that long. I mean, finally, when there was 2 minutes left in the game, we saw guys like Marcus Kemp on the field. But I mean, that should have happened way earlier. Yeah.
They should not have been in the game that late. That really made me mad. And I don't know what the hell Andy Reid was thinking. And, you can brush off these coaching deficiencies from Andy Reid when the team is winning, and that's what a lot of people tend to do. But when they're losing, man, they stick out like a sore thumb, and it really makes you question Andy Reid.
Yep. I see some people mentioning Tyreek Hill. I just want to ask you this. What is wrong with him this year? Why can he not catch anything?
I don't know, because last year his drops were... he had some drops and they were littered all about, but it wasn't as bad as it was this year. I think he's already matched his drop number from last year.
Right. And I
have no idea what the heck is going on, because usually in the past, he's been a guy that has, strong hands. So I don't understand it.
I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, led the league in contested catch rating. And now it's he can't even catch a wide open pass where there's no one within 4 yards of him. I don't understand what's going on. And the thing is, 3 times now we've seen that, backfire and turn into an interception.
And he's another player that's kind of talked about getting paid, and he's had some cryptic tweets and stuff. You're not going to get paid playing like that.
No.
Same thing with Tyron, who I'm sure is tweeting right now. And we're both going to check the timeline, I'm sure, to see what the hell Tyron tweeted after the game.
Yeah, someone in the chat a few minutes ago mentioned that he's already, searching his name up and replying to people on Twitter. So
that's soft. I love Tyron. Again, that was another thing that I would always excuse with him, but when they're losing, it really makes him look dumb. And honestly, I'm not completely sure the Chiefs even want to re-sign him. And I'm not sure they can afford to re-sign him anymore with how many other fixes they're going to have to make.
Yeah, I think I saw some people saying just tag and trade him in the offseason, and I guess I'd be fine with that, but I don't know if people are going to trade for him if he's just on the tag. I don't know.
They could just wait to sign him.
Right.
Or they could at least wait to try and sign him. They don't have to give up assets if they do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty rough.
And the thing is, if we get rid of him, then we're also losing Frank Clark and Anthony Hitchens, who are supposed to be the 3 leaders of this defense. So we'd have to completely rebuild the entire defense. So I don't know, man.
And I've said this several times, and we'll probably end on this note, but I've seen a lot of people say that we're going to have to rebuild the defense. And I keep telling people, we just rebuilt this defense 2 years ago. We just rebuilt it. So that tells me that Brett Veach wasn't the right guy to do the job the first time.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, it's not even that. It's just we made the wrong decisions. We let go of Emmanuel Ogbah and kept a guy like Alex Okafor. We let go of Kendall Fuller, and he's been pretty solid for the Washington football team these past few years. Frank Clark, like I said, he won a ring and just gave up. It's like, I think the intention was there, and obviously we won a Super Bowl with that defense that he did rebuild, but keeping that same defense has been the issue.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in guys to fix this defense that they just didn't even hold on to when they probably should have. So that's part of the problem as well.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a bright spot, Chiefs fans, next week's game is against the Giants. And I think that's going to be a win, but I've said this before. I don't think any Chiefs fans should be looking at the schedule and say any games are automatic wins.
No, I mean, if the Chiefs don't win that game, then, I mean, there clearly is a coaching issue.
Then I think we can really start talking about people being fired.
Yeah.
I've been ready to talk about it, but a lot of people like to wait and see with that kind of thing. But yeah, that might be the point. We talk about people getting fired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'll wrap it up there. So thanks again so much for all you guys that joined today. We're still at 58 right now, so we got a lot of you in here. I know it was a rough game today, but I'm glad we're all able to get together here and vent. One last time, I'll shout out Hydra. Thanks for joining us today, and you guys can go follow him on Twitter. His @ is literally the same username he has on the screen, and I'll link that in the description. But with all that being said, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this, and we'll see y'all next.